Hybrid, convertible, generally a combination you don't see, which leads us to one of two conclusions. Either A, car manufacturers are hiding something about this partnership of sorts, or B, there's a conspiracy theory against putting these two disparate aspects together. Either way, I don't want to be the guy making you think that car guys wear tin hats, but both, they're kind of true. Admittedly, quite a bold statement, but one we need to qualify. What you are looking at is technically a hybrid convertible, but not a hybrid in the traditional sense where there is an electric motor that hands over to a gas motor or it has a plug. This is a mild hybrid. There is an integrated starter generator motor. It sits between the engine and transmission. If you have been following this show or Mercedes for the past 5 years, you know this system. Basically, it's more about performance, maybe some efficiency, but really instantaneous torque from zero. In this case, over 150 pounds of instantaneous torque. Now, one thing we do need to get back to on that statement, there is something that car manufacturers aren't telling us. I'm going to say this right at the top. Convertibles, by design, from the beginning, the heaviest derivation of any car. So if you're going to add an electric motor to an existing gasoline engine, that's the thing they're not telling you, and that's why they're not making many of these things. Also, because these are generally the most expensive version of any car. So that's really the reason why we don't see them from the combination doesn't work in a business sense. But in terms of making this interesting, that's where things change quite a bit. This is not the AMG, so it's not supposed to be the fastest one out there. But even this, which is basically a Cadillac Eldorado of 2024, a convertible version, this goes 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds. Now, yeah, not an AMG, so it's not a really high VMAX, 130 miles an hour. I'm thinking that's limited. Either way, that's the benefit of putting a performance-oriented hybrid into something with a folding roof. This is unusual. Just got back from San Francisco where I was shooting the ID Buzz. There, beautiful sunshiny weather. Back to LA and overcast and cold and a convertible. With that, 4,486 pounds, or depending on express your weights and measures, 2,035 kilograms. Important point of order. If this was the convertible with a 4-cylinder engine, it'd be 200 pounds lighter. If it was a coupe with the 6-cylinder engine, it would be 400 pounds lighter with that sport mode. Oh yes, instantaneous torque. I am a huge fan of the integrated starter generator motor sitting between the engine and the transmission in these Mercedes fantastic 6-cylinder engines. And this is a great application because this one isn't supposed to be the fastest one, and it still works incredibly well. I think it's a combination of the instantaneous torque, but also the tuning of the transmission. I have to take my hat off to Mercedes on the 9-speed because you and I have tried 9 speeds in other manufacturers, even 10 speeds. Not great applications. I usually don't like that many gears in an automatic because a lot of times you find it's hunting. This, you are not seeing any hunting, and that's with a torque converter. Usually it's a little bit sharper when you have the multi-plate clutch in the Mercedes world or a dual clutch, say, in the Volkswagen world. Here, very well suited to this delivery of power. And really, there isn't a hell of a lot more to say about the delivery of power other than this car is deceptively easy to drive fast. Rather than playing a round of our famous game, the options game, we need to answer a difficult question. Why don't we see more vehicles like this anymore? And when I say this, I mean personal luxury or fancier cars that have folding roofs. Basically something nicer than a Miata. Short answer, money, but there are two key data points that kind of prove the point. First would be the cost of this. These are on offer in 2 different flavors. A 4-cylinder, which has a base price of $64,350. Then there's this, the 6-cylinder, $73,850. Now, the car you are looking at is pretty well equipped. We don't pay for the stunning Starling Blue, but we pay a couple of bucks for the fancy 20-inch wheels, the massaging seats, Napa leather. Believe it or not, the black in there is Napa leather. It's not quite as nice as the G-Wagen, but it is okay. Overall, the color combo, not great on this car, but still, this has a retail price of over $85,000. Now, that sounds like a hell of a lot of money. If we look at really what they're trying to accomplish here, they're trying to bring together the E Class and the C Class in one car. Now, we'll discuss whether that's successful or not towards the end of this episode, but that's where money plays a big role, because E Class convertibles were the better part of $100 grand just a couple of years ago, where, say, a C Class convertible or a 4 Series convertible, they're like 50 to 60 over the past couple of years. The cheapest one now is $59,000. Put that aside. Let's go back in history. There was an E Class convertible. That car had a base price back then of almost $78,000 US dollars. Put another way, in today's 2024 dollars, that's over $166,000. Now, yes, one would say that was a very different car. That was a real E-Class, and it was ostensibly a hand-built car. Those are collector cars, but the market doesn't quite value them yet. I think they'll get there. But let's look at something this is a direct competitor of, a 1994 BMW 325i. That had a base price of $38,000. Granted, serial production car. In today's day and age, that's over $85,000. So if one really looks at it, they're now cheaper in real dollars than they were 30 years ago, which is the real reason why Mercedes-Benz is blending the E and the C together, and that translates to, hopefully for them, more volume in fancy hybrid convertibles. How much did we just say this thing is? And it doesn't have adjustable dampers fitted as standard. Yes, I'm certain one could have them fitted to this car for additional money, but that is a crime. This is the 6-cylinder, it is the heavier car. I would argue it absolutely needs the adjustable dampers. Here, yes, I'm still going to maintain very easy to drive fast, but if you push it aggressively, because the kind of people that buy this thing, they're not going to push it that aggressively, but there's going to be those days, like a nice Sunday afternoon after church, where you're out with the kids and you want to have some fun. The car gets a bit squirrely. Is it to the point where it's going to kill you, kind of like a Viper used to? No, that's where the all-wheel drive comes into play. But overall, it needs to be cleaned up a little bit, because the steering cleans up, the ESP cleans up, but nothing else. So if I'm really knocking the way this thing drives, it's please, oh please, oh please, make something standard that would make this even that much more refined. Now, there's still one important piece of business we have to tend to from the top of the episode, and that's the whole conspiracy theory against these things. And if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, it's very simple. The car manufacturers don't want to tell you to your face that they think people who buy these things don't give a damn about electric motors. It's probably true, so it's nothing really sinister, which brings us to this. What was the learning we took off this? It works well, but in reality, I'm really looking forward to the CLE 53 version, because the car, I think, needs more to make this package work, which brings us to the wish list and really the important learning we've taken away from this episode. This, lovely, but if I'm honest, the 4 Series, that's kind of the better one in this segment. Granted, this is before we drive the CLE 53. And that's where I'm going to make a suggestion to the folks at Mercedes. I get what you're doing with trying to bring the C and the E together, making this longer, make it look bigger, but it's still a C. The reality is, at least from a small businessman's perspective, I would want to compete in a blue sky, not in a calcified industry. There are more of things like this than we see things like an E Class convertible. So how about an E Class convertible between, say, 80 and 100 US, which sits between the 4 and sits between the 8, which is the closest thing out there in that segment, and make that your blue sky and, frankly, That would drive more people who are passionate about these, even with an electric motor. But I'm one man. This is the point of the episode. I turn around to you guys to opine in the comments below or via our social media, MotoMan TV on Word, MotoMan TV on Word, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And with that, if you found this episode fascinating, I would highly suggest you watch our BMW M4 Cabrio episode. No, not a hybrid, but all-wheel drive. You can see the episode here. Until I see you in the next episode, be später.